Welcome to What Am I Looking At? A podcast from the Department of Art and Design at Arkansas State University. My name is Dr. Tima Balducci, and I'm a professor specializing in modern and contemporary art. Throughout this series, each presenter will be giving insight into works of art that are in some way unusual, sometimes strange, sometimes hard to understand. I hope you enjoyed today's exploration of the visual on your radio. In previous podcasts, I've discussed many different types of art from the end of the 20th century, including installation, performance, and earth art. Especially in the decades from the 1950s to the 1980s, artists were experimenting with these new art forms, and painting was really considered a bit old-fashioned. Been there, done that, nothing new to see. It's either going to be realistic or abstract. What else is there really to do? Things began to change in the 80s, especially in Germany, when several artists came to prominence who pushed the boundaries of painting in new ways. One of my favorites is Gerhard Richter, who does both abstract and representational painting, while also exploring the boundaries between the two. And he asks probing questions about representation itself, confounding our expectations of what representation is and what it's supposed to do. I especially love Betty, a painting he did of his 11-year-old daughter in 1988. Before I describe the painting, you probably assume that it shows his daughter in some traditional pose, half length or three-quarter length, looking directly at the artist or perhaps looking down, either posed formally or caught in a spontaneous moment. Probably the last thing you expect is that her head is turned away from the viewer, but that is exactly what the artist gives us. What we see is the back of her head, with a bit of her neck, the back of her left ear, and a small bit of the side of her face. So exactly where her face would be in a traditional portrait, it's a bit disconcerting to see instead her golden brown hair loosely arranged against a neutral backdrop. Her upper body is twisted so that her left shoulder is closest to us, and she's wearing a boldly patterned jacket or robe. The painting completely overturns our expectations and does nothing that a portrait is meant to do. At a basic level, we don't learn what Betty looks like or what her emotional state is, which is something a good portraitist would also be able to convey to the viewer. Another interesting element of this painting is that it's actually done from a photograph. Richter loved to play around with photographs and the different information given by paintings and photos. He felt it was actually better to paint a portrait from a photo, since according to him, photographs really give the best likeness. But of course, in the case of Betty, we don't get a likeness. Richter also loved to paint landscapes from photographs, but instead of making a recognizable scene, he would blur the painted landscape so that it was a bit unreadable, again, undercutting expectations for what a representation is supposed to accomplish. On this tendency of his, he said, quote, "I blur things in order to make everything equally important and equally unimportant," end quote. What Am I Looking At is provided by KASU in collaboration with the Department of Art and Design at Arkansas State. Stay tuned next week for another look at art over your airwaves.